Welcome to Kanpai Planet, I'm Mac, and today I'm at the Yakushima Aging Cellar.
And at Aloha Whiskey Bar in Tokyo to check out Mars, the YA #1. Mars Whisky, Japan's 4th largest whiskey company, have 2 whiskey distilleries in very different climates. The Mars Shinshu distillery is in Nagano Prefecture in the Japanese Alps. It was established in 1985, mothballed in 1992, and restarted in 2011, and produces bottles under the Komagatake brand. Mars Tsunuki is in Kagoshima Prefecture in southern Kyushu. They started whiskey distillation in 2016, and the first releases out of there have been widely acclaimed, including the Tsunuki 2022, which I have previously covered on Kanpai Planet. The bottle I'm reviewing today is a blend of components distilled at those 2 distilleries, but not matured there. This liquid has been aged on Yakushima Island. Yakushima Island is 60 kilometers off the southernmost tip of Kyushu, and 20% of the island is registered as a UNESCO World Natural Heritage Site. The center of Yakushima is dominated by ancient moss-covered cedar forests that inspired the landscapes of Studio Ghibli's classic film Princess Mononoke. The forests are famous in Japan as home to the Jomonsugi, a cryptomeria tree considered the oldest living being in Japan, estimated to be between 2,170 and 7,200 years old. It's on this subtropical island that Mars have a shochu distillery called Yakushima Denshogura, which was founded in 1960. On the same site as this shochu distillery, they built the Yakushima Aging Cellar. Warehouse 1 completed in 2016 and Warehouse 2 in 2021. It's a lovely structure, clad in 100-year-old local cedar wood.
So here I am in Mars Whisky's Yakushima Aging Cellar, 380 barrels filled with juice that's been made in Shinshu or their distillery Tsunuki in Kagoshima. It's been shipped here and then filled here. And 80% of these barrels are bourbon barrels, but we've also got some port casks and some sherry casks.
As well as whiskey, they're also aging some of that shochu made at the distillery next door in barrels made of jisugi, local cedar. The climate is pretty intense in Yakushima. In the summer, they have highs of 38 degrees centigrade and 85% humidity in the warehouse. This leads to an Angel's share of around 8% per year, compared to 6% at Tsunuki and 2 to 3% at Shinshu. All that evaporation means that being in the warehouse is quite the experience.
It smells absolutely fantastic, beautiful, and helps me imagine what's going to be emerging from these barrels in 3, 5, 10 years and beyond.
There have been a number of Yakushima aged whiskies previously released by Mars. The highest profile of these has been the Yakushima Aging series of Mars Shinshu liquid, released from 2017 to 2021. There have also been a couple of the Le Papillon butterfly series aged on Yakushima, as well as some bottles which were part of the Double Cellar series, some Tsunuki New Make, and some single casks. This is their first blended malt aged in Yakushima, and Mars are intending to create a distinct identity and bring their Yakushima aged whiskies under a new brand. You can see this in action in the label design, which is pretty interesting. The logo is an abstract design composed of a tree, the sun, and the roots and land. The outline of this shape is Yakushima Island, showing diamond-like facets in a mix of whiskey and nature colours integrated together. The cap is blue, differentiating it from Mars's other brands, Single Malt Komagatake and Single Malt Tsunuki. Right, let's drill down into the creation of the liquid. It uses a mix of non-peated to slightly peated malted barley sourced from overseas, and most of the liquid in this bottle was distilled in 2017 and 2018. The percentage of Shinshu to Tsunuki liquid is top secret, but what I do know is that the oldest Shinshu vintage maturing in the Yakushima Aging Cellar dates back to 2014, while the first shipments arrived from Tsunuki in March 2017. The blending is the work of a team which included Tsunuki distillery manager and blender Tatsuro Kusano. Most of this is ex-bourbon barrel liquid, first fill, second fill, recharge, we don't know, and the other components haven't been disclosed, but we can take a pretty good guess given the composition of barrels in that aging cellar, which I highlighted earlier. All of this has led to 12,000 bottles of 700 millilitres of non-chill filtered, natural colour, 52% ABV whiskey, which will be sold domestically and overseas in an undisclosed ratio. That compares to 50,000 bottles for the Komagataka 2021 and 35,800 bottles for the Tsunuki 2022. And that Tsunuki 2022 release was split roughly 50-50 domestically and overseas. In Japan, it has a recommended retail price of 9,900 yen after tax, around 75 US dollars, a little pricier than the previous two flagship general releases from its parent distilleries. Worth it? Let's find out. Checking out the colour, that's a lovely bright golden copper. On the nose. Okay, the first thing that hits me is acetone, alcohol, nail polish, spirit, all notes that make me conclude that this is pretty youthful. And those notes are still quite dominant, despite the fact that I've let this sit for quite some time. Now, luckily behind that, there is more going on. I'm getting a lot of vanilla, which I would expect given that this has been aged primarily in ex-bourbon casks. I'm getting cherries and berries, hints of those sherry casks, which I believe have been used, and an artificial banana note, which I tend to get on Komagataka whiskies. There is some sweetness there, a bit of honey, and a bit of white chocolate. Kanpai? I'm getting some citrus, which is pretty characteristic of Tsunuki, and some sweetness. A little bit of strawberry jam, a little bit of marmalade, a bit of that honey and white chocolate, which I found on the nose. But despite the fact that I've led with those notes, I wouldn't characterize this as fruity or sweet. It's more savory and a little tart. There's a bit of spiciness there, a bit of white pepper, and some bitterness. It does remind me of some IPA cask finished whiskies. It's a bit less youthful on the palate than on the nose. The 52% ABV is providing decent body. What I suspect is some Tsunuki peated whiskey is showing up in the background there and providing a bit of structure. The finish is medium, those savory notes present themselves, along with some bitterness, that IPA cask finish character that I talked about earlier, and then some vanilla, and then a bit more sweetness, some of that banana and white chocolate emerge over time. So, what's the verdict? It's not bad. I've got to admit, I came into this with very high expectations considering some of Mars's more recent general releases and also the Yakushima aged whiskies which I've previously tried. There are fruit and sweet and savory notes, but that combination hasn't created the balance that I was hoping for. It's nowhere near as Moorish, for example, as the Tsunuki 2022. I really was hoping to say something along the lines of the impact of the climate on maturation is evident, or wow, look at that accelerated aging on the subtropical island. But it really does present pretty young. However, it is perfectly drinkable, and Mars fans like me will enjoy passing out the contribution of the Shinshu distillate, the Tsunuki distillate, and the Yakushima aging. So, should you buy it? I would say try before you buy, and look to the Tsunuki 2022 and Komagataka 2021 as alternatives. Now, I am impressed with the ambition of this release, and with 2 distilleries and 3 aging environments, it's time for Mars to step out of the shadows of Suntory and Nikka and take their place as one of Japan's whiskey powerhouses. There's no doubt that some unique whiskies will be coming out of Yakushima in future. Until next time, Kanpai.